Hallo, Derek hier. Wir hatten vor kurzem noch ein Frage-Antwort-Session und ich zeige euch jetzt einen kurzen Ausschnitt davon. Und diese Woche, es geht ein bisschen so Richtung versteckte Text oder versteckte Bedeutung. Und wir haben zwei konkrete Fragen. Eine ist der Unterschied mit if-Sätze und bedingte Sätze. Wir haben zwei Beispiele, die zeigen wirklich, wie diese sogenannte Subtext ein bisschen anders ist. Und andere ist Tag Questions, was völlig verwirrend und doofe Ding ist, was wir auf Englisch machen. Ich hoffe, dass es für euch was bringt. The next one is also an interesting one. It says, what's the difference between these two sentences? And the sentences are, if I move to London, I will buy a house. Or if I moved to London, I would buy a house. What's the difference? And the difference is that it's subtle. It's almost in the subtext. So that in the first one, if I move to London, I will buy a house. That's the first conditional. And if I moved to London, I would buy a house. It's the second conditional. So they're both giving the first part, if I move or moved to London, is something that's not 100% certain. And then the consequence, I would or will buy a house. And if we look back at the lessons on the conditionals, what you'll see is that as we move through the conditional, so we'll have like the zero conditional is for things that are 100% true, certain. If you heat ice, it melts, you know, it's just something that happens all the time. As we move sort of through the first, second, third, and mixed, the probability and likelihood gets lower and lower and lower until definitely by third and definitely by mixed, we're almost in the realms of impossible. You know, if I were you, well, you can't be me, you know, so it's impossible. Or if I had a time machine, well, you haven't. So the subtext is the difference here. But in both cases, they're saying there's this event that's not certain, and in the event of it happening, this is the consequence it will have for me. So the first conditional is used for likely events, and the second conditional is used for unlikely events. So the subtext here in the first version, using the first conditional, if I move to London, I will buy a house, is kind of telling us an additional piece of information that the move to London is quite likely. The second one, using second conditional, says if I moved to London, I would buy a house. Through use of the second conditional, it tells us that this move to London is not likely. And that really is the difference. It's the subtext in how likely the move to London is. And the last one is the tag questions seem illogical. Why do we need them? Now, to give us a side sort of review on tag questions, these are these sort of strange things that we Brits tend to do. So you'll take a statement, you'll negate it, and then add it on to the end as a question, which if you think about it like this, is a really silly thing to do. I mean, why would you want to do this? I can understand the question. So there are a few things you need to be sort of aware of with tag questions. There's three things that matter. So we have the subject, the verb, and the tense. And they all need to match up. So if we were to say to somebody, you're Peter, aren't you? That's a correct tag question, the aren't you. If we have the wrong subject, we say you're Peter, aren't they? That doesn't make sense. If we had the wrong verb, we say you're Peter, haven't you? It doesn't make sense either. And if you have the wrong tense, either correct verb but the wrong tense, you would have something like you're Peter, weren't you? Which again doesn't make sense. So we need these three things: subject, verb, and tense need to match the original part of of the statement. Now you can also have negative. It doesn't have to be a positive with a negative tag. It can be a negative with a positive tag. It just has to be the opposite. So we could have, oh, you're not going home early today, are you? Okay, so that's again the opposite tag to the statement. And the question is, it seems rather illogical. Yeah, it does. It seems, if you think about it and if you break it down as we've just done, it seems a bit of an absurd thing to do and very redundant and unnecessary. So the question is, why do we need them? And we have several uses. One is really just asking for confirmation that that thing that I just said is true. So if I would say, you're Peter, aren't you? It's like, I'm not 100% sure, but just confirm to me that that's true. There are other situations where we would use them where they become sort of really nuanced. And a good example of this would be if you're going for a job interview and the person says to you, can you start on Monday? Now, that's a very neutral sort of way of asking the question, and you can answer yes or no. But if they ask it with tag questions, they sort of almost push you towards a certain answer. So they might say, you can start on Monday, can't you? Which is really sort of saying, I need you here on Monday. You need a good reason for not being here on Monday. And we come on to this sort of slightly related topic of English politeness, where being direct is considered impolite in English. And so these tag questions in this example, you can start on Monday, can't you, gives us a sort of a way of softening the directness a bit and making it more polite. Or the other way round, of course, we had a negative question with a positive tag. Again, using the interview example, the person might say, oh, you couldn't start on Monday, could you? And then what he's sort of conveying with this version is that I realize it's unlikely you'll be able to start on Monday, but if you could, that would be really, really good. And that would help me a lot. So again, we have these sort of nuanced sort of background information that tag questions can convey. Und das war der kurze Ausschnitt von dieser Woche. Wer Interesse hat in Mitglied werden, bitte guck mal die Link in der Beschreibung. Ist jeder willkommen auf dieser Mitgliedschaftsseite. Bis zunächst. Tschüss.